Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of How to Speak in a Dublin Accent with me, Mrs Gibney. Now today I'm going to talk about all the different kinds of names we call each other here in Dublin and in Ireland in general. So I'm going to start off with a nice easy one, and the first word is Ije. Ije. Now, that means idiot, but we just shorten it. You know, you have that word in most of your countries, idiot. It's a dopey person. It's a person who does stupid things. A person who doesn't have a lot going on upstairs, you know? You know them type of people, a few sandwiches short of a picnic, a few rashers short of a fry. You know them types. So that's what we call an idiot, someone that does something stupid. That's it. So then I'm going to move on to a more derogatory word, and the word is poxy. Poxy. All right? P-O-X-Y, poxy. Now, that word can be used to describe a person or an object or a feeling. So, for example, you would use variations on the word. Now, as you've probably figured out, poxy comes from the pox, which, of course, is disease-ridden and things like, you know, smallpox and whatever. Think of those types of diseases that was in medieval times and all that. Think about the feeling that surrounds that. That's poxy, right? So if you're discussing a particular individual, for example, and you don't like them, you might say he's a pox bottle. He's a pox bottle. That's the type of way you'd use that word if you're talking about a person. Now, if somebody said, what's it like outside? As in, what is the weather like? And if it's raining, if it's lashing out of the heavens, you might say, it's poxy. It's poxy. I'm not going out there, it's poxy. All right? So then also you would use it in everyday life. Say, for example, if you're trying to open a jar of jam or something like that, right? And you can't get the jar open. You might be trying to get it open and you say, I can't get this poxy jar open. You know? So that's the word poxy, and there's lots of ways to use that, you know? So then moving on to yoke. Yoke. We use the word yoke in many variations. Now, you might know a yolk as in the yolk of an egg. You know the little yellow part in the egg, in the middle? The yellow bit? That is the yolk. And we kind of think that anything could be a yolk, you know. You might say to somebody, here, pass us over that yolk. That means pass that thing over to me, because you can't think of the word of what it is. You might be asking somebody, give me the screwdriver, but you can't think of the word screwdriver, so you say, give me the yolk. The yolk. All right. Now, you'd also use it with people. And if you're talking about a person and they're a bit crazy, you might say, he's a mad yoke. He's a mad yoke. So you know what mad is, a bit lula, a bit mental. So you just put the two words together, mad yoke. He's a mad yoke. All right. Then, of course, we use the word ball quite a bit. You might call somebody a header ball. You just kind of call anybody a header ball, really. Where is your friend? Where's header ball? So you use it any way you like, really, header ball. Now, you might also say, if somebody did something wrong, if they didn't do a good job at something, you might say, he made a balls of that. He made a balls of that. The plural for ball, balls. All right? And that kind of means, you know, he made a hames of it. He didn't do a good job at it. So that's all I think I have around ball. Now moving on, shy, right? Gob shy, gob. This is your gob. Very gobby. A person is very mouthy, they're very gobby. If they're a gob shy, they're stupid, very dopey. Gob, shy. Now shy is the equivalent of shit, S-H-I-T. We say shy. So imagine shit coming out of your mouth. Stupid people do that. So that is a gob shy. Somebody that says or does stupid things. All right, also shy bag. Somebody you just don't like. They're not a nice person. Now, also we have the word wagon. Wagon. Now that's the kind of word you'd use for a woman who you don't really like. And sometimes you use it for somebody who's been a little bit bold, a little bit naughty, you know. If you might say it to a little child, you're a little wagon you are. If, for example, they rubbed a load of chocolate over your curtains. You know, if they're about 2 and they don't understand and you're trying to tell them, don't be rubbing chocolate on the curtains, you little wagon, you. So you wouldn't always be so rough. But then again, if you're talking about your next door neighbour and you don't like her, she's an owl wagon. An owl wagon. O-U-L, owl, which means old, wagon. All right? Then, what other, whoer. Whoer, that's another word you'd use for a woman. Who are. Now, in most accents, they'd probably use the word whore. Whore. W-H-O-R-E. Like a woman of disrepute from a whore house. But we'd say whoer. It's a lot easier to say. I think there's a lot more emphasis in the 2 syllables. Who are. Whoer. All right, so let me think now, is there any more? I can't think of any more, to be honest with you. So if I think of any more, I'll tell you in the next lesson. So I hope that was helpful to you, and I'll talk to you all later. God bless. See you later now.